that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. We got a great show for you today. First of all, we're going to talk about DJT Is Back. Yes, is back. He's right here that he's at some are kind of starting. They're smaller in scale and that kind of thing, but he's back out in the public in a big way. I think he's being energized by some of the poll numbers he's seeing. We're going to talk a little bit about that in just a moment, but I feel like Donald Trump is back. Not necessarily that he went away, but I feel like the energy is there and the excitement is there. And I think the Democrats are starting to get a little worried, and we'll talk about that. And in our second story, we're going to talk about something that's happening here in Florida that has the Democrats kind of quaking in their boots. Donald Trump is making massive inroads, according to polling and other sources, in Miami-Dade County, the biggest county in the state of Florida, population-wise, and really almost land-wise as well. But a lot of people don't know that. That's a side story. But anyway, Donald Trump is making massive gains in South Florida, which is the stronghold for the Democratic Party in the state of Florida. And we'll talk about that. And then kind of, some of the crazy stuff that's happening. The Oscars. Yes, the Oscars. I know you probably don't care much about it. I used to care about it. I don't care much about it anymore these days myself. But they've made a change now in that I believe implements in 2024 that about what qualifies, what you have to do in a movie to qualify for an Oscar. And we're going to tell you about that. I'll give you a hint. It has something to do with diversity. But we start in but Donald Trump being back, and he was in Florida yesterday, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I had some friends of mine that attended it and posted a bunch of stuff on Facebook about it. It seemed like they had a great time. This story, Donald Trump said at one of the rallies, Joe Biden will appease domestic terrorists. I will arrest them. And as I say, this is from Breitbart. And there you go right there. Donald Trump, man. I mean, this is what he needs to send to Governor Cuomo of New York when he said, you need an army to go down the street in New York. Well, Trump could bring a tank, man. I mean, Trump should ride into New York City on a tank. But anyway, I think it's funny myself. But President Donald Trump on Tuesday continued campaigning against the violent radical left rioters in America's major cities, describing them as domestic terrorists. Well, why would he describe them as domestic terrorists? You got any clue? Because they are domestic terrorists. That's exactly what they are. I'm going to play a video for you right now that is about a year old, a little over a year old, and it shows Antifa violence out in Portland long before this 100 and straight some odd days and nights of violence out there. This is Andy No. It's spelled N-G-O, but it's No. He is a reporter that has been covering Antifa for a few years now. You may recall this incident. He got attacked, got his skull fractured. He got he got milkshaked, which milkshaked is not what you might think. It's not like a chocolate malt or something. It's actually concrete, basically. They mix up a plaster Paris type mixture and it solidifies fairly quickly. And he got his skull cracked, and all he was doing was covering the violence that is Antifa. So I want to show you this video because, to me, look how these people are dressed. And this was over a year ago. And you tell me, if you were confronted by people in all black wearing helmets and beating the crap out of people in a street in the United States of America, what would you label them? Check it out. And that's good enough. Right there at the very end there, you saw a guy throw a cup like that. Was basically like throwing a brick in the back of the guy's head, and he had his skull cracked. I give Mr. No some credit here, man. What a courageous young fella he is, because you would think that he would consider, and maybe he did, but consider, hey, maybe another line of another profession, or maybe cover a more peaceful group of people. But to his credit, he has continued to cover these people. He's non-confrontational. In fact, if you look at Mr. No, he is everything the Democratic Party is supposed to be all about, right? I mean, first of all, he's Korean, so he is a person of some color. He's an American citizen, of course, but he's openly gay. And conservatively, if I've looked at, but he reported, and for that was nearly killed. The idea that violence is a recent thing, George Floyd, is really not for years, and it's only going to get. Don't have Donald Trump. Trump went on to say, as the crowd said, he said, Biden's plan is to appease domestic terrorists. My plan is to arrest them. Now, some people may not like Donald Trump for saying that. I got to tell you, and I'm very comfortable in my sexuality. You know, what I tell, I hadn't said this in a while. Sexuality, I got a simple policy. I got an open mind and a closed behind. I really don't care what other people do as long as they leave me alone. But I got to tell you right now, I got a man crush on Donald Trump. I love the guy. I mean, I really love me some Donald Trump, man. I mean, the guy looks into the cameras, looks into the crowd, and just says it. He says what we've been feeling all along. See, that's one of the things that people that don't like Donald Trump or wonder about how you MAGA hat wearing sons of guns dregs the society, as Biden calls us. I'm always debating whether I'm a dreg or a basket of deplorable. Billy Bob here, he's clearly a deplorable. If you hadn't met my psychic sidekick, Billy Bob Bass, he's got a Twitter handle. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. But I back and forth. I think mostly I'm a dreg when I really look at it, and thanks to Joe Biden. But Billy Bob, he's more of a deplorable, but he kind of keeps me straight on the show. But the thing is, if you don't understand Donald Trump, you don't understand why some of us really, like I say, I'm just. So you, for some of you, those of you who support Biden and think he's going to be a law and order president, and the president speaks to that in just a moment here, Go back and review the tapes from the DNC and show me an example of where anyone, let alone Biden himself or Kamala Harris, actually spoke about the violence in our streets. Not a peep. Total crickets. In fact, you had Democratic leaders leading up to the convention that spoke to the violence and said this right here. Remember this video? Check this one out.
That's a myth that's being spread only in Washington, D.C.
About Antifa in Portland?
Yes.
Sir, there's videos everywhere online. There's fires.
Think about that. We've been having violence, declared riots for over 100 days now in Portland. And there you have Jerry Nadler, the head of the Judiciary Committee, a leader supposedly saying, oh, when it comes to Antifa, it's a myth. Well, tell that to Mr. No, Andy No, that the violence in Portland is a myth. The man had his skull fractured in broad daylight, I'll have you. I mean, they're out there on an American street in broad. Think about that just for a moment. Let that sink in. That here you have a reporter, daylight, on a busy American street in a major city, Portland, Oregon, getting his skull bashed in by jackbooted thugs, truly jackbooted thugs, not ICE agents, by the way, as the Democrats call them, but actual jackbooted thugs in the streets, busting people upside the head in America. And nothing happens to them. Nothing happens to them. It's a myth, as Nadler would say. But Trump went on to say Joe Biden and his party spent the entire summer cheering on the rioters, rampaging through Democratic-led cities, falsely labeling them as peaceful protesters. And I've been saying this for a while, is repeating. If you're someone who went out there after the George Floyd incident, as tragic as that was, and peacefully protested, I'm with you. I support your right to do that. I may even agree with some of your points. But if you're still out there thinking you're peaceful protesting, just go home, because your protest has been hijacked by the hardcore progressive leftists of Antifa and Black Lives Matter, which is a communist organization. Yeah, I said it. Black Lives Matter is a communist organization. Look at their website. They tell you that themselves. You don't have to take my word for it. You could, but just go check it out. But this idea that we had peaceful protests, and the term mostly peaceful protest, I can tell you this. If you hear them say, well, this was a mostly peaceful protest. I mean, remember that footage we played a while back that showed CNN talking about in Kenosha, Wisconsin? Oh, this was a mostly peaceful protest, while literally in the background of the reporters talking, you see a wall of flames and people's dreams burning down and turning to ashes, man. Oh, this was a mostly peaceful protest. I guarantee you, if you hear the term mostly peaceful, something burned for sure, and somebody might have got killed, certainly hurt. I mean, that's the definition of mostly peaceful protest. But if they're trying to peacefully protest, just go home. It's over. I mean, even a blind man could see what's happening in Portland. Has zero to do with peaceful protest, has nothing to do with George Floyd or police brutality or any of that. It is anarchy, pure and simple. But if you want to hear, we just heard from Jerry Nadler, but if you want to hear from the next president, maybe United States, God help us if that's true, how about this person right here, who is the vice presidential candidate for Biden, and we know, God help us, get some
They're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day.
Network, which is a streaming service. And with America's Voice News, we are now on Dish Network, channel 219. And if you look at their streaming side of it, you can get archives of our show there as well. So we're great. We're proud to be on America's Voice News. And on a side note there, if you want to look at anything Trump, like rallies and all that, you can see them on our Facebook page, courtesy of America's Voice News. Know for a fact supports communist Marxist organizations. So I can't watch the NFL. I can't watch any sports, basically. All sports is pretty much out. And if you know me at all, you'll know that I'm about as diehard sports fan as there is, and I just can't watch it anymore. But Donald Trump, man, he is courageous. He don't care. He'll take them all on. And that's why some of us have a man crush, woman crush, a crush on, we love us some Donald Trump. I know you guys, some of you guys out there don't get it, but we love our president and we're going to vote for him again, believe me. But Trump went on to say, do what you want, vote for the candidate backed by violent left-wing rioters if you have to, or do what you want to vote for the candidate backed by the selfless heroes of law enforcement. Donald Trump has been endorsed pretty much by every major law enforcement group. Some of them have endorsed for the first time ever or in decades. I mean, the police are endorsing Donald Trump. And here's something that I've talked about before, but you know, when I look at our military, and there's been a lot of talk about the military and all, it's all been debunked, by the way, all this stuff. If you really pay attention to it, it's totally orchestrated attack on Donald Trump. No one has supported the troops, both as citizen, as candidate, and as president, than Donald Trump has. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. But the president is all for our military. And the thing is, keep in mind, we have a volunteer military, an all volunteer. And this is not a knock on them, it's just a fact. But here's one worry I've had about a volunteer force. And they're the finest, the best of the best, so I'm not knocking them. But what if we become a country that is simply not worth fighting for? Why would you volunteer for a country that is in the crapper, that no longer believes in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Because the Democrats don't believe in any of the Bill of Rights that I can see. They don't believe in free speech. They're trying to squelch free speech. Second Amendment, don't even get me started there. I mean, the Second Amendment, like the president said, and he said it before, if you vote these guys in, your Second Amendment is gone. And by the way, if you're interested in Second Amendment issues,
Harris is then of this problem. But guess what? The rioting has to stop. Chris, as you know and I know, it's showing up in the polling. It's showing up in focus groups. It is the only thing right now that is sticking. And the Democrats tonight stuck with that, right? And they also stuck with the theme that you said, the coronavirus. You got coronavirus and you have Kenosha. And then you have the First Lady of the United States. So what did we see tonight? The First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump. On the day the death toll, Chris, in this country passed 178,000. One of the only people at this convention to actually acknowledge the virus and to speak about race. Did she do it in an honest way, or was it just for political reasons? She did do it. But then she went on to gaslight in her own way, praising her husband's honesty, really, and claiming that her husband doesn't waste time playing politics.
Right. That's good enough. Yeah, so Don Lemon tells you right there, and Chris Cuomo says, right, because Don Lemon is the king, right? Don the Lemon, that's what I call him. But anyway, he tells you flat out that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party have to address the violence, not because people are getting killed in the street, not because people's American dream of business is being burned to the ground, not because federal buildings are being torched out, have Molotov. The chaos, the streets, which is going up on a daily basis, is because the poll numbers, not because children are being shot in the chest and killed in strollers, because a 8-year-old girl was shot in both of her legs in a car just the other day in Brooklyn. Not because of that, but because the poll numbers are slipping. How callous is that? Really admit that. I'm can't. Remember that Maxine Waters kind of fired the first shot, saying, hey, Trump supporters, members of his cabinet, attack them, basically get up in their face. Remember what happened to Sarah Sanders when they was the first one I remember really accosted in a restaurant? Now it's part of a routine thing. I mean, at least, and I say at least, I can't believe I say it that way, but it's true. At least with Sarah Sanders, you had a figure that they knew was a Trump supporter because she worked for the president at the time. I'm not condoning it, but, they targeted someone that is a public figure. I don't believe in it, but they did it. But now they're just targeting people based on what? Skin color? Check out this video. This is a recent video. It shows a couple of incidents where people, in this case, white people, are simply, to me, they don't have any political stuff on whatsoever. You can't tell. I would assume in some of these cities, they're probably at least potentially Biden supporters. They're definitely not wearing MAGA hats, and they are literally attacked verbally and to a certain extent physically and asked to stand with Black Lives Matter or else. Check it out.
Put your mask on now, huh? Motherfucker. Tasty piece of shit. White supremacy. Hey! Get something here.
That's good enough. Is that the America you want to live in? Think about that. It doesn't matter. I mean, these people knowingly target people who are on their side. I mean, wasn't it just this past week that Ted Wheeler, who is the mayor out there in Portland, literally had where he lives set on fire? And who could be more in tune with the Antifa Black Lives Matter crowd than Ted Wheeler? Remember the mayor out there, I'm trying to think which city it was in Washington now. We played it, and while it doesn't really matter, where she literally was on her knees for Black Lives Matter in her town, and then turned around, had a Black Lives Matter poster in her window at her home, had an Alphabet City rainbow flag flying on her porch, and literally her house was vandalized for Black Lives Matter when you couldn't be a bigger supporter of Black Lives Matter than she is. So no one, that's why I tell you, Progresso world is at our doorstep. And if it actually happens, which it will happen if we lose Donald Trump, heaven forbid if Trojan horse Biden gets in there, or Kamala, where's my Willie Harris gets in there. I mean, that you will, Progresso world be on top of you. And a lot of you progressives out there who just want to live your life. I mean, I understand the Antifa bunch, but a lot of people who are progressive actually want to live in a peaceful place, attend a ballet or whatever. You're not going to like Progresso world, because they're not asking you in this video we just showed you. They're not asking you who you for, because they don't care. I mean, you've seen the videos where they literally go into what are progressive neighborhoods in places like Portland, Seattle, and Georgetown and DC, and say, wake up, MFer, wake up. And that's what you need to do, is wake up and realize that if you want to have any semblance, if you want the right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then we got a choice in less than 2 months about whether we're going to have that, or whether we're going to have Kamala Harris tell us that the riots will keep going even after Election Day. And we need that to happen. We support that. That's what you need to understand. If you want, you don't have to like Donald Trump one bit, but if you're honest, you got to admit, take them at their word. They're telling you you won't have any peace. But President went on to say, talking about some of these shouters, these are Biden supporters, and if he wins, they will be in charge of your government as sure as you're sitting there, he said. And ladies and gentlemen, the choice is absolutely yours. And Billy Bob tells me that, the chant we need to have is no Trump, no peace, because that's true. And remember the chant that the Antifa had a couple of years ago that I played on the show, where they said no borders, no walls, no USA at all. They come at their word, because if you got no borders, you got no walls, there'll be no USA at all. And I'll tell you this, so no Trump, no peace, no Trump, no USA. Progresso world, you're not going to like it. All right, we're going to move along to another story coming out of the great state of Florida, man. We have a lot of crazy stories here. We hadn't done a Florida crazy story lately. We need to bring that segment back, because we have our share of lunatics here. But in this case, it's crazy good, man. This is a political the Democrats are asking themselves down in Miami-Dade. Trump gains rattle Miami Democrats, man. Trump. And it's mainly because of Cuban, but other exiles and Hispanics in general are turning bigly, as Mr. President would say, for Donald Trump. And I'll explain some of the Cubans, but some of the others. I mean, Venezuelans are a big portion of the population down there getting to be. And they're swinging towards Trump in a big way. And it's got the Democrats a little bit scared. All right, let's get into it. The basic electoral math in Florida, and let me tell you, I agree with this synopsis in this paragraph. This is how Florida politics on a statewide, especially presidential election, usually go. This is how they go. The basic electoral math in Florida looks something like this. Democrats roll up their votes in South Florida and Miami-Dade County. Republicans pad their numbers in the north and statewide, talking about the panhandle for the most part, races, and decide an Interstate 4 corridor between them. So I-4 basically goes from Orlando to Tampa. It's a east-west, and it literally just begins and ends between Orlando and Tampa. So whichever way that goes kind of decides the fate, because Miami, predominantly big Democratic numbers. The rest of the state, like Panhandle and up even where I live, except the county where I live, pretty much Republican. And that I-4 is kind of a mixed bag in whichever way they go. So I agree with that 100%. But they make a point here that things may be changing. This year, however, the I-4 corridor is taking a back seat in some of those calculations. President Donald Trump's campaign and Republicans are making inroads in Miami-Dade County, the state's most populous, forcing Biden campaign to scramble in response to threat and the wellspring of Democratic votes. President Trump, man, is taking the fight to them. That's another thing you got to love about President Trump. I mean, when he walked, I know he got criticized by the media, but people who have a man crush on Trump supporters, dregs, we loved it. When Donald Trump walked out of the White House, through the flames, basically, and held that Bible up, I know a lot of the leftists and the media, which are all one and the same, the Democrats, they just poo-pooed him. But I got to tell you, people like me and Billy Bob, we loved it. Donald Trump is taking the fight right to him. The man has courage. Even if you don't like him, you got to admire that. In a county where more than half the residents are born outside the main, they're talking about Miami-Dade, the mainland U.S., mostly in Latin America, Trump has outspent Joe Biden's campaign by $4 million on TV in the Miami-Fort Lauderdale media market, much of it in Spanish language ads. Pretty smart. The president's conservative allies have dominated Spanish language social media and WhatsApp messaging in Spanish speakers. And the Miami-Dade County GOP has fielded candidates, local candidates that are going to be running in November, candidates in 5 key local races, all of whom are Cuban American, which could help turn out the pro-Trump Republican vote. That is very, very smart, very good tactic. But I like how they talk about, and this is true, that more than half the residents in Miami-Dade County were born outside of the mainland in the United States. But they're citizens now. You know why that's important? And this is some message to Democrats. I don't think they totally get it. People who come from places like Venezuela, for instance, which there is a growing population of Venezuelans in Florida. I've met quite a few of them through the Republican Party. Amazing people. Does the term freedom mean anything? Give us free, like Armistead said, or in Mel Gibson's movie, Freedom. It's powerful. It's powerful, man. Remember, if you come from a place like Venezuela, then you know that this meme right here is absolutely correct. And this meme should be a warning to all Americans. You can vote your way into socialism. And we're on the verge of doing that. We've been doing it steadily for a couple of decades. You can vote your way into it. Yeah, democracy can bring about socialism. But you always got to shoot your way out. And so the people who come from these bankrupt, both spiritually, morally, and financially countries, they understand what freedom really means. And they are turning towards Donald Trump, the true freedom fighter. Do you really believe that Biden is a freedom fighter or a fighter of any kind? Or Kamala Harris? She supports the rioters. She said we. Go back and listen to that video again. A new poll of local voters, listen to this poll. And at first blush, you're losing in this. But the truth putting inside these numbers found underperforming Hillary 2016 margin Trump in the county. Democrats need to run up the set losses and elsewhere. So he's still winning, but he's not winning with the same level of numbers that Hillary Clinton. We know what happened to her. Well, I wonder, you think, why would Cuban voters, which make up the dominant part of Miami-Dade, or Hispanics in general, why would they be turning away from the Democratic Party? It could be because they take, like I've been telling you, take these progressives at their word. Who is the power behind the throne right now with Biden-Harris, should he actually get to the throne? Isn't it Bernie? And here's what Bernie had to say about Cuba and Castro. Check it out.
Sanders is defending comments he made about Cuban leader Fidel Castro and the Cuban Revolution during an interview in the 1980s. When questioned about the Cuban Revolution, Anderson Cooper, he said that the Cuban Revolution wasn't entirely bad.
With the authoritarian nature program, is that a bad thing? Even though Fidel Castro condemned that.
Decide. And here's what I've decided. My decision is very easy. I choose President Trump because I choose America. I choose freedom. I still hear my dad. There is no other place to go. Thank you, and may the good Lord bless America.
Wow. Even though I've seen that half a dozen times now, and that's just a speech, his whole speech is about 6 or 8 minutes. Check it out. Maximo Alvarez, man, he's a hero of mine. It chokes me up thinking about that. Because he said his dad told him, don't ever leave here, talking about Florida, United States of America, because there's no place else to go. Does it get any stronger than that? Is there any, he said he's got a choice to make and he's made his, it's for President Trump. Is there any more anyone needs to say than that right there? I get emotional thinking about it. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to end the show on that. We're not going to have time for our third story. Check it out about the Oscars. It's crazy. Maybe we'll cover it later in the week. But you got a choice to make come November 3rd and even before in early voting and absentee or however you vote. But remember this, when it comes to freedom, which is what I think a lot of these Hispanic voters are choosing, there's no place else to go if we lose America. And I'm just going to say it like it is. I actually believe that no borders, no walls, I take Antifa at their word, no USA at all, no Donald Trump, no USA at all. Because these guys, Biden, I don't care who Biden used to be, the man he is now is a Trojan horse, and he brings with them these domestic terrorists, and that's what they are. Is that the America you want to live in? Progresso world? Because I'm telling you, you're not going to like it unless you just want blood in the streets. Hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it, and share it. Just check out our YouTube, John Martin Talks. Sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited. Go to above the, wherever you're watching it, whatever platform, BDU, check. Be helping. I say each and every day from my heart, from